So let's see what we're gonna make of this podcast, Inês. I'm very happy that you are here today with me, and I approached you because I saw that you are co-founder of I think even a disruptive approach in healthcare.
Mhm.
And you're also an advisor specifically for women's health. I'm looking forward to get your perspective on all the work you are engaging with and also in relation with stress. Very much welcome here today.
Super excited to be here and to share a little bit more about my experience, how I deal with stress for sure, or sometimes how I don't deal so well with stress. I think this is a learning process for me as well. But yeah, happy to share a little bit more of the work that I'm doing and how I'm dealing with all the things happening at the same time.
That causing already stress, no? How to keep the focus with all the things which are happening. Let's get first to talk about. Can you call it a startup, or is it already in a sort of a bigger scale? TejoMed, do I say that right?
TejoMed, yeah.
You're dedicated doctor for life,
Mhm.
and is how you call it. And what I very much like about the profile you have is written making healthcare human again. And I'm with you on that part, like how to make healthcare human when everything is going quicker and more artificial intelligence. um, I go back to natural skills to ground myself. But how do you make healthcare human again?
Yeah, maybe before talking about making healthcare human again, I think let's talk about like how we all perceive healthcare right now, right? And then I think the story of TejoMed is very much a story of like how myself and my co-founder Tyler felt like the healthcare was very transactional, very fragmented, very rushed, and every interactions with the healthcare system in Portugal we have public and private, so but no matter like where we were it felt like it was never with the depth that we needed. It was always very rushed. We felt like we didn't feel human, right? We felt like part of like we are a number, we have a set of symptoms, and we are trying to address those symptoms as fast as we can, but without going in depth into what we were actually feeling. And I personally remember a time many years ago when I was growing up where I would have my family medicine doctor. This would be someone that would see myself, but also my mother, my grandmother, my father, and so on. And there was like this strong relationship, right? Like this trusted relationship with this doctor, someone that we would have to wait sometimes hours in the waiting room for the doctor. But when we would go into the appointment room, we felt like we felt hurt, we felt seen. There was no rush. And no matter what brought us to that appointment, we would always feel better in the end because of that trust and that relationship. So what we wanted to do is like bringing that back, that trust, that relationship with your doctor, but also on top of that, make it more preventive, right? Like this scenario that I'm sharing from my own past it was very reactive, like reactive medicine, focusing on like addressing whatever the problem was. But I think we are now in a moment where we want that relationship. We want the appointments to be longer, more in depth. We want to feel listened, but we also want the healthcare to be more preventive, more proactive, and more personalized. And I think the combination of these things end up like made us create TejoMed as this membership-based family medicine clinic where doctors have time for their patients, where doctors can do not only reactive care in the situations of acute problems, but also very much focus on preventive, proactive care to make sure that people feel healthy long term. And the center, like the core of the service, is the relationship between the patient and the doctor to make sure that people feel that trust and that connection again with their doctor. So this is what we are building with TejoMed. We have been around since 2024. Things are going well. We are still a small startup, right? So we are still in the startup phase, still learning a lot and trying to understand how better we can care for our patients.
And is the care you're delivering, is that online or also face to face?
We have actually both. We
Okay.
do have a clinic right now in Lisbon where we offer in-person care. And I do believe that a lot of the stronger relationships are built in person, not online. But I think a lot of the times for convenience, we also offer online appointments just to make sure that our patients can have the necessary follow-up. They can be seen by the doctor whenever they need. So we also offer online appointments.
And I heard you saying a lot of times the word rushing. It seems to be rushing is the normal way of doing things nowadays, which not necessarily is always the best. So how do you make sure you're not rushing in what you do with TejoMed?
First, we decided that like the minimum time for an appointment is 30 minutes. So the appointments can go from 30 minutes to 90 minutes long. Then we also make sure that less patients than a traditional doctor would to have more space in their calendar. For example, in Portugal, in the private sector, even in public sector, a lot of the times the doctors see sometimes 30 patients in a day, 40 patients in a day, which means that they have 15 minutes for each one of them, one after the other, without much of a breather in between the appointments. We avoid those situations to make sure that the doctors can see the patients, they have the time, they see less patients, and there is a space between appointments to make sure that happens. That's an important part of our service. I think like it's very interesting because a lot of people do come to us with the frustration of like the feeling like they are always being rushed. And rushed means that they are not listened. A lot of the times means that they can never go in depth into their problem and means that they are treated like everyone else without feeling that, okay, my own concerns, my own specificities of whatever I have are not taken into consideration. And that's something that we also want to make sure that people or the doctors are able to see in our appointments.
Do you have certain outcomes already there?
Yeah. So we have a few things. So one is we have the feedback, like the feedback of the patients, and if even if you go on Google, you can see like the reviews from the patients, and a lot of them, especially like a lot of these reviews come after the first couple of appointments, and what they report is that they feel listened. They feel like there was this in-depth appointment, in-depth focus on their health issues, and that's a big difference from the past, right? So that's the first. The second one is around the fact that we do have a lot of like um, anecdotal situations. So patients that come to us and say like, "Oh, I've been looking for whatever was wrong with me for 20 years, and finally I got it." And this is like common, right? So I think like every other week we have someone sometimes emailing me as one of the founders of the business, or like talking to us, say like, "Oh, the fact that I'm part of TejoMed, finally I was able to get to the bottom of like whatever it was dealing with." So more time usually means that we are able to go more in depth. And so this is great for, especially when we are talking about like layered, complex healthcare situations. That's another data point. And I think also a third data point is that last year, and we want to repeat it this year, we asked our patients how they were like perceiving the healthcare, what we were providing. And I think 80% of the patients said that they saw that the symptoms that they came to us either were solved or had improved with TejoMed, which means that we are making a difference in the patient's life. But I think it's also still early. So we have been working really for a year and something. And I think in the next few years we'll have more results, more of these stories to share. So, but yeah, we are already seeing the impact of this kind of healthcare.
Good. In short, you could say the visits are longer, but because you go more in depth, whatever is the recommendation is more precise, and therefore solution comes earlier on in the process or is found, so that the patient is not a patient anymore, but can at least go back in life and live happily ever after. No? Something like that.
Hopeful, yeah, exactly. So I think like again, each person is different, and
Yes.
a person comes to us with very different situations, and I think each one needs to be treated differently. And I think that's what we offer, right? Personalized care and more in depth. Also, like a lot of the time, something that we do believe a lot is also lifestyle interventions. So how can we do nutrition, exercise, stress management, sleep management to also address these kind of things? And I think all of these combine can lead to better results. And that's what we are working and that's what we believe.
I read what you wrote about the longevity And it was all about the difference in health span and lifespan. That we're getting older, yes, but we also are longer sick. Then the win in getting older, is that really that good if you're not living in good health? You are in the direction of that, no? Earlier on in prevention so that the health span can improve.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's great that the life expectancy has been increasing so much, right? So right now in Portugal, on average, a person will live 80 something years, which is great. I think in Spain even more. So I think it's really great, like how much life expectancy actually increase. I think what we want to make sure is that people live that life expectancy in the best health conditions. So for that to happen, preventive care is really, really essential. And that's something that we believe in. And that's something that I personally also believe in very much. Is like, what can we do to make sure that we, in the next years, year after year, we feel that we are trying to do our best to have a high quality of life until the end of our days. And I think that's super important.
Yeah, and normally you only go to looking for health and solutions when you have issues. So, what is it? Yes, while the prevention starts already earlier, but then you're not busy with it because you feel good, and you cannot really foresee the impact of your behavior today, what it will lead to in 20 years. So, how old is the in average the population which comes to your clinic?
I think the average age is around like 45 years old. We do have a lot of patients, and especially like the ones that joined TejoMed earlier that were very preventive focused, right? So they were very interested already in preventive care. And I can relate to them because I feel like we also in a time where there's so much information out there, so many like podcasts, books telling you like do this, do that, and then the next day should do something else. And there's so much confusion also around this kind of information that a lot of our patients also come to us for guidance. What actually should I do? What does the science say? What can I do to really improve my quality of life, my health long term? And they ask us to help guide them through that process, especially the early days with TejoMed. We do got a lot of patients more on the younger side, focusing on the preventive care because with that mindset. But we have patients from newborns to 80 years old coming for us with a lot of different reasons, looking for support, looking for in-depth healthcare, preventive, proactive, and personalized.
I read that you have you have your doctor, so you always interact with your doctor to also increase the connection. What kind of support do you exactly offer?
Right now, we have family medicine doctors. This kind of specialty is because they look at the person as a whole person. That's actually something that a lot of patients come to us feeling like, okay, I'm tired of like the hyper specialization of healthcare where I'm only seen by the lens of the heart or the brain or like whatever, right? So they want someone that look at them as the whole person. So we have family medicine doctors and internal medicine doctors that have this approach to healthcare, looking at the person as a whole person and be able to support them. And a lot of them can like they can see 60 to 70 to 80% of the healthcare needs of the patient. And when it's outside of the scope of their specialty, they can then recommend a special in that area to help the patients if needed. But within TejoMed, we only work with family medicine doctors and internal medicine doctors to look at the person as a whole person.
How much do you see stress in all the stories in your clinic coming back?
I'm in a very privileged position because a lot of the times I'm one of the first people that patients talk to when they come to TejoMed. I'm not a doctor, and that's important to say. When people find out about TejoMed, they sign up to have a call with either me or my colleagues, and a lot of them come to us. And it's not that they mention, "Oh, I'm so stressed," but they say they have the mindset or the awareness that they need to do something to improve improve their health. Not only because they have a specific condition, but they feel like their day to day is so stressful. The demands of work and life are so big that they need help with. I think stress. Everyone is stressed, right? I never met anyone that was not stressed. I think different degrees of stress. We all have different strategies to cope with that stress, but the reality, like everyone comes to us, there is like a general feeling that everyone is very stressed, work is demanding, and so they need strategies and sometimes support from our side to deal with that.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost an overused term, no? So
That's
if
true.
you're not stressed, then you're a rare species in this world. But if everybody is stressed, nobody is stressed anymore because that is then becoming the new baseline.
Exactly.
And it depends, like you already said, no, it's very individual also. How do you cope with situation? And one person is way more, to call another word which is often used, resilient, so can manage stress at a different level than another person. What are the to go strategies when we're talking to stress? If you talk with people.
Mm. Because like I usually don't I talk with people randomly. I'm not part of their care. Personally for me, a lot of the times when I'm talking with other people, friends, family, and even for myself, exercise is definitely a good way to deal with stress. I was very lucky because since I'm maybe 10 years old, I realized the importance of exercise in my life. I've always loved to play sports. I was the girl playing soccer in the during the breaks in school because I always felt that was a very important part of my life. I felt like it grounded me. I felt like it really gave me a lot of peace of mind when I was exercising, and it was like something that I was lucky to find out very early. And then as I grew, I kept on doing exercise. And then there was a moment that I didn't, right? So then I went to college, life got busy. And I think for 10 years in my 20s, I didn't do any exercise or almost any exercise. And then I realized how much I was missing and how much exercise is great for your body for sure. But for me, is even greater for my mental health, for me to deal with stress. And that's something that I've been doing for many years now. And that really, really helps. There are seasons, moments that I do more, moments that I do less, I think as everyone, but that's something that's definitely an important strategy for me in terms of exercise. And the two others that worked very well for me. One is meditation. I see a huge difference. So I was the Whoop to track like sleep and exercise and so on. And the days that I do meditation, my HRV always increases. The quality of my sleep always is much better, even if I just do 10-minute meditation, right? So that makes a huge difference in my life, in my stress levels. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is you mentioned that I do love to read. And reading for me has always been a great way to lower my stress levels. Growing up, I was obsessed with reading, maybe too obsessed. I was like reading so much that I didn't do much else. But I still read a lot. I usually read nonfiction. So I don't need fiction books to necessarily decrease my stress. Just the fact that I'm learning, just the fact that I'm reading something, sometimes a little bit outside of my scope of my work, really helps me with managing stress. It's like for me, it's meditative. I need to do it for some time. So it's not like just 10 minutes here and there. Ideally, it's like 1 hour here and there that makes a huge difference. But yeah, those three things really, really help me with managing stress. And that's what usually I recommend to other people. It's especially the exercise for sure. I know that reading is not something that everyone loves, but meditation is another thing that I also recommend.
Meditation in a very busy world with a very busy head is quite difficult. So, how do you encourage people, or how did you maybe yourself get started in it and started to see or feel the benefits of it?
I've used different apps along the way. I remember the first time that I meditated. I was in the Netherlands, in Maastricht. I don't know why, but I downloaded this app called Headspace and I did a 10-minute meditation. In the end, I was like, I feel different. I cannot explain what happened. It never happened to me again, but after those 10 minutes, I was like, wow, this is like, I really, really needed to quiet my head. And I hadn't noticed it. And this was like maybe 10 years ago. And then along the way, I've used different apps, Headspace, Waking Up. Now I use Calm. It usually for me works in the mornings. I try to wake up earlier. I walk my dog. I go outside. I get my sunshine. I come back, have my breakfast, and after breakfast, I sit in my couch and I meditate for 10, 15 minutes. I did that this morning, and it helps. Like I just like doing it in the morning before the world wakes up. It's easy, it makes things easier. And and initially I was like, okay, I feel good in the end, but I didn't notice anything else. When I started using the Whoop, I could see immediately the impact that had on my and the quality of my sleep. And initially I thought like this cannot be true. Like it was such a big impact for just 10 minutes that I feel like this cannot be true. But the reality like is consistent, right? So as I do it more and more, the stress levels during my sleep usually flatline if I do meditation. And that's something that it's such a big impact on me because it really makes a huge difference in the quality of your sleep, in your HRV and so on. That like the evidence, at least for me, is there, right? I cannot unsee it. And that gives me the motivation to keep going because I definitely see something.
You would like to see something, at least of the benefit. Either it's a change in your body if you do exercise or you want to lose weight. But with meditation, it's not so tangible. So if you say, okay, I see it's a clear relation between my sleep quality and how I wake up, and therefore it makes me keep on going, this is definitely something what people also need for things which are not tangible. Oh, that
Yeah.
is that is really good. Maybe also the going outside in the morning could add to that, no? Because then you're immediately has also been proven. You go outside, take the first sun rays, you activate your day rhythm immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, having a dog, it was a huge difference. And even the other day, I recommended someone to get a dog because I felt like they have like this very chaotic life. And it's like, oh, if you need a routine, have a dog because dogs thrive on routine. So they will force you to have a routine. And for me, having a dog that needs to go outside in the morning and it forces me to have a little bit more, also more consistency in my sleep. So I'll go to bed. I wake up always at the same time, go to bed around the same time, and that definitely helps. And I think sunrise in the morning makes a huge difference in the quality of your sleep as well. And now that the sunrise is earlier and there's like it's really really great. I personally hate when I wake up and it's still dark outside, but
Yeah.
right now that's not happening anymore, so it's perfect.
And now that you say about the dog, I remember I'm nutritionist and I had also questions in the past on how can I stay fit or how can I motivate buy a dog.
Exactly.
Then at least you need to go out and you do your thing, and that is absolutely, absolutely important. You're also very much into women's health. Um, you're an advisor. Differences in men and women is huge. The difference in healthcare in men and women is even broader. What is your perspective on also the differences in experiencing stress between men and women?
Mhm. For context, I've been very passionate about women's health for a very long time because I felt in my own body the fact that we don't know enough about women's health. We know a lot about men's bodies and how they work. We don't know enough about women's bodies and how they work because of the impact of hormonal health has in our bodies, and how like the impact that, for example, stress also has on women. One of the one of the main differences between men and women is like, of course, the menstrual cycle, and menstrual cycle has a huge impact on your like your stress levels. The same thing, the same thing that happened to you or the same day happening in a different part of your cycle can have a huge impact on how you feel at the end of the day. I don't think that we are thought about it. I don't think that growing up anyone have ever told me, at least, like, oh, you'll feel different. I think this is something that you start feeling that something is different. I also know that when you are in your 20s, the way you perceive your body is very different than when you are 30s and 40s. Right now, I'm 36. I do have pains. Right now, I don't wake up with a lot of pain, but there was a time that I was waking up and I feel like some pain in my body. Fortunately, that's not happening anymore. But still, I think like in your 20s, you are not very self-aware of your body because like you don't really have issues. But as you grow, as things evolve, like you start seeing different things, and then you start seeing like the impact that the menstrual cycle has on you. I had a very interesting experience where, again, I really like data. So I have the Whoop and I also have a dashboard where every day I track a few things. So I track my mood, I track my, like how many hours I slept, how, like if I had my vitamins or not, if I did exercise or not. And there was a time where if I did exercise on day 19 or 20 of my menstrual cycle, the next day I could not leave my bed, especially like in the first hours of the morning. I was like so tired. My body really was like, oh, I cannot deal with it. And this is the kind of things that data helps you understand. And then you can start saying, okay, what can I do to really address that? Back to your question, I feel like men and women perceive stress in a very, very different ways. I think the menstrual cycle in women has a huge impact. Unfortunately, I don't think that we are thought or very much aware of that. We get aware later in life, and once we are more able to be aware of this, I think then we can use some strategies to understand. Like there are parts of your cycle where you can do a lot of exercise. There are others where you should do less. And you should be able to address stress and exercise and even like nutrition, supplementation, and so on can be different along your menstrual cycle.
So you say measurement is knowing. I always wearing. Oh, it's on the charger. I'm always. I was on the show. It's. I'm always wearing my Garmin watch, and then it says in the morning when I really thought I didn't sleep well. You slept fantastic. So then I think, okay, maybe I slept fantastic, maybe not. But it's not always true. What is there? Also, the breathing indication. I'm focused a lot on breathing and nervous system regulation is not correctly measured because you measure it on the wrist. So how do you deal with that?
Mhm. When I see something on my Whoop, I also have a Garmin, but it gives more or less the same information of my Whoop. When I look at the information, I don't take that as face value, right? I try to understand, like, how do I feel first,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And because I had these situations where I didn't sleep at all because I was traveling, and then I really had very bad sleep. And then my HRV was super high, so my quality of my sleep score was super high, but I didn't sleep at all. And I was like, that's something weird. We are still not in a place where these things give you all the information. I think we first should trust our body. We first should work on our self-awareness. For example, athletes do this very well, right? So people that do a lot of exercise, they become very in tune with their body. But I don't think that most people are in tune with their body, right? They feel like they don't know what they feel. We need to do efforts to actually understand, like, oh, how do I feel? And then the data from Whoop, Garmin, is additional data points that can help you. And I think that's the most important part. I can give you another example. For example, sauna. Everyone's like, oh, sauna helps you sleep better and so on. I do love to go to a sauna. It doesn't have any impact on me. Like, I don't sleep better. The Whoop doesn't see any difference. I also don't feel it, right? So I don't feel in my body any different. We need to be aware. There are things that will work for you. There are things that won't work for you, and that's normal.
Yeah. So is there awareness, and maybe with the tools or support or the tracking devices, you increase the interest or the curiosity to at least to get to understand as a first entrance what's happening in my body. So from that stage, you can also trust more and more about what you're feeling yourself.
Yeah, exactly. We need to be self-aware, understand our bodies, be in tune with it, and then the Whoop, the other, like the Garmin's and so on, give us interesting information for sure. But that doesn't replace our own self-awareness.
You have many different functions. Also, working in a startup is not like established ground. So that's every day is going up and down, I can imagine. What causes stress in you? And then the second following question is, how does it show up?
I think my baseline is stressed, and I was like this since I'm a young kid because I feel like I've always tried to be the responsible one. But that brings a little bit of stress, right? I think the stress is there, and I feel like a lot of the times the moments that I'm the most stressed is when my legs start hurting, which is a weird thing. But basically, on my day to day, I think I have let's call it like a normal levels of stress. In my Whoop, I like I don't spend my most of my day in the high stress. Like usually it's like medium to low, that's fine. But then I think like when I start feeling more stressed day after day, when that happens like on a more consistent basis, what I start feeling is like my legs are hurting. So my it's very interesting because I think it's tension. So I accumulate tension in my legs for some reason. And then so that's when I know, okay, like my stress levels are very high. And then when I know that, then it's hard for me to exercise if I have so much pain in my legs, right? So what I try to do in those situations is actually go for a walk with my dog, or like a longer walk, because I still can walk even if I have this pain in my legs. And usually that helps. Something that I also realized and that I didn't mention before is like, in these situations specifically, if I go for a walk in nature, so I don't like to walk these longer walks in the city center, right? Like I like to do this in nature. And there is this walk that I sometimes do is like 4, 6 kilometers, depends how long I want to go. And it's like on my way up and then down. And sometimes I joke and say, the years that goes up is very different from the one that comes down, because I feel on my way up, I just start leaving the stress behind. And then on my way back to the car, or I come back a new person. And I think being away, I'm very lucky because I live too close to a park where, as you start going in the park, there's no cars, there's nothing. So just like some people walking, and that makes a huge difference, right? So again, I feel like I'm usually stressed, but not like too much stress, I guess. But then when the stress levels go very, very high, I feel it in my legs. Going for a walk in nature, as far away from cars and buildings as possible, makes a huge difference.
That is the interesting of stress, no? You say I'm normally not so stressed, medium or low, but you don't really know.
Yeah.
There are tools also to measure that, and also your Garmin watch will tell you how much stress you had in the day. But that is it. It's not tangible, and that makes it also difficult to understand it. Unless, like you said, you have pain in your legs. I've heard many things passing by in this podcast about what people experience. And that's also the reason, because not always you realize that the symptoms you're having could be related to stress. So I'm only pleased that you have another kind of stress reaction, because maybe others could relate to that and think, hey, I have that too. It's interesting though that you're going to walk when you feel tired in your legs.
Yeah, because I feel like it's tension, right? So it's like the pain comes from my muscles being so tense. And if I go for a walk, usually it's like a slow walk. I'm not like running, right? I'm just going. And as I start going, the tension decreases, right? So everything changes, even my breathing changes and so on. Doesn't mean that when I come back, there's no pain anymore in my legs. That's not it. But I feel less tension, right? And that really, really helps. Yeah.
And in your work, I can imagine that if you work on something which is disruptive, because it's a different way of giving care to patients, I assume that you also have a lot of high expectations while the whole healthcare environment is moving slow. It's always
Mhm.
moving slower and things are going slower as you expected. How do you deal with that?
Mhm. There are things that I can control and things that I cannot control. What I try to focus my energy and is on the things that I can control. I cannot control the pace of the healthcare system. The way we are working with TejoMed is we are also trying to be insulated from that. We are taking our own initiative to provide the best best care we can for our patients, and that should be our focus. So what I try to focus is like, what can I control? And there are things that I cannot control, and then in those kind of, I try to think the less about that. And an interesting example that is not necessarily related to TejoMed, but I think influences us a lot, everyone, is like the current like news, like the state of the world, right? So right now there's so much things happening, war, AI, and the disruptive nature of AI. And something that I realized a few years ago was I was very influenced by everything that was happening, right? So I'm very worried. I'm a pessimist by heart. I used to be an optimist, but along the way, something happened that I'm a pessimist. So if I focus too much on what's happening in the world, I will get very stressed, very negative, and that's not good for me or for what I'm trying to accomplish here. So what I try to avoid is to on like the news in general. So very rarely I watch the news, or very rarely I read something. Of course, there are moments where you need to, and or things come your way. Of course, I know what's happening in the world right now, but I'm not constantly checking the news, check, like I have no social media on my phone. I have no news apps on my phone. Only if people share with me or if I look for that information, I will be made aware of it. What I try to do here is like those are things that I cannot control. I cannot do much or anything about. I try to focus on what I can control, the things that I can make a difference. Of course, this is an ongoing battle. There are days that this mindset wins, but there are days where I'm still influenced by X, Y, and Z, and those days are harder. I get more stressed. What I try to do is what are problems? And if the problem has a solution, and sometimes the solution is money, sometimes the solution is more resources, sometimes the solution is whatever, that doesn't stress me as much. But so there are other problems that require a lot of thought, require a lot of work. Those stress me a little bit more. What I try to focus is the ones that are under my influence, not the ones that I cannot do anything about.
That's very wise. Not always easy to decide because we let ourselves, including myself, no easily to get distracted with everything where we cannot do nothing about, and we lose then a little bit of our own influence. I was interested in what you say about I was positive and now I'm a pessimist. Can you use that like that, or what happened to go from the positive to the negative side? Because if you go in one direction, maybe you could also go back to the positive direction. Because what I understood, negativity isn't that good dealing with stress or dealing with difficult situations in general.
Yeah, I think like I don't know when that happened. Sometimes I joke and say like I'm not a warrior, I'm a worrier. I'm always worried with something. I think there are moments that things are a little bit more in control than others. And also important thing is like this my way of being doesn't make me, because I think a lot of times people like when they are very worried or in this state of mind, they froze, right? It's like, oh, like they have this paralysis, like what can I do? That doesn't really doesn't impact me. What ends up happening is like in these different situations, situation A is happening. Immediately my mind, I will see everything that can go wrong. And I know some people, they see everything that goes right. And this is going to be amazing. In my mind, I just see like everything that can go wrong, which is not necessarily a good thing, but at the same time, it helps you prepare. So being aware of like what's the bad things that are coming makes you prepare. I remember, for example, when COVID hit. So I was like seeing some of the news, even though I don't spend a lot of time in the news. And I think this was in February, and then in March we did the close Portugal. But I went to the supermarket. I think in the middle of February because I felt like, okay, this is happening. I know that this is coming to Portugal. I'm very aware what was coming. So I went to the grocery store very calmly. I bought whatever I needed to buy. I prepare myself. So when the COVID hit and when like we were all stuck at home, I was like, okay, so I know what's happening and I can see it. I remember talking with my father, and he's an optimist. And he was like, oh no, that's not going to happen here. I don't know why you are worried. But in my mind, there was no way that that was not happening. Each person is different, right? I remember when I was younger, I was very optimistic about the future, like, oh, the future is going to be amazing, all of these things happening. And then I believe that might have happened. I had some health issues when I was like 25, 6, 7, that impacted the way I think that's what actually made me work on women's health. That's what actually made me create TejoMed. But that also eliminate my optimism about the future. Through that process, I became more of a pessimist than that I would like to. I would love sometimes like being naively optimist. It's the best thing in the world. Unfortunately, I'm a pessimist. That again, that doesn't make me not do things, but I would prefer to be an optimist.
Could you also see it as realistic that and also gives you a feeling of control? Because if you prepare for all the different scenarios, okay, this could happen, A, B, all your pessimistic scenarios, no? Doesn't mean that they need to happen, but you prepare for all of them so that in the case it might happen, you feel prepared, you are in the control, and you have less stress.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of seeing it. Sometimes I do feel like, oh, I'm realistic. A lot of a lot of things that like new things creating the world are driven by optimists, not by pessimists, right? So if you are an optimist, you are I think more willing and more open to try new things, to build new things with that the energy of the future will be amazing. I think with pessimists, a lot of the times pessimists might be right. Also, that creates sometimes even a false sense of control, because like, are we really in control, or we just like prepare for this, all of this? I will give you a very clear example. So Portugal and Spain, we have this blackout April last year or something like that, right?
Yeah,
I
March.
spent the
Yes.
whole day thinking that we were being attacked. I was at home. I didn't leave my home. I went, of course, outside to walk my dog, but I rarely left home. I spent the whole day thinking about like, okay, how is going to be the future. I also spent part of the day reading, since I didn't have much more to do. Then the next day, I started talking with people, and some people went to the beach. It was a beautiful day in Portugal, and that thing never even crossed my mind. Going to the beach by this situation, like in my mind, the only thing that I could see was like the worst case scenario, right? This is like the end of the world, not the end of the world necessarily, but like this is going to be bad. What it takes to be prepared? Do I have enough food and so on? What I'm going to do? That was the whole thing that came to my mind. And then I remember talking with a few people. I was like, oh, I had a amazing, beautiful day. I went to the beach. And in my mind, I envy these people, because like I could not have that energy, that thought process didn't cross my mind at all. And I think that's the thing, like the different people like, look at the world in different ways. If you are an optimist, you go to the beach and you enjoy the day, and tomorrow is going to be whatever it is. If you are like me, you are a pessimist or a realist, depending on the days, and then you just spend the whole day thinking about that the world, as you know, might end. That's why I envy the optimists. And optimists are the ones that end up like pushing the world forward, and that's why I wanted to be an optimist. But it's not easy to change. Maybe I will change in the future, but not right now.
Nothing is impossible. No, that is at least for sure. And I thought always that negativity, or at least pessimism, is not good for your health.
Yeah. Mm. I
So
agree.
therefore, yeah. So therefore, it's important to look at the other side. Maybe realistic positivity, or something like that. In the situation you described, it was also a beautiful day in Spain, I remember, and I was at home, so I didn't realize too much of it. To be honest, because I was just at home with the beautiful weather. And it was very quiet everywhere because nothing was further rest happening. So then all these thoughts and things what could happening, that could also, yeah, have a negative effect on everything, on your mood, on your outcome, on your results. So working on that in general, I think would be helpful.
Mm. No, no, for
I d-
sure. I'm trying. I'm very, very self-aware of the pessimism, optimism situation, but it's not an easy process. But definitely aware. It's like I think optimists live better. I've seen somewhere that health outcomes are actually better in case of a specific disease. Like if they are pessimists and optimists are sick, optimists will have better survival rates. I'm not sure how true it is, but I've read something about it. So I think, yeah, I want to be optimist, but the reality is sometimes it's not easy for me.
but the reality is also that you can, and that's what you do, and that's what you have. You can create this awareness. So you know that you're in that box in an automatic reaction when things are getting out of hand. And then you can also, by observing, becoming aware, you can decide what you
Yeah.
want to do with these thoughts. So that you're already in the process of awareness, which you need to make any decision. Okay, if you this is your reaction, doesn't mean that you need to react in this way. You can choose deliberately, if you are aware, to choose differently.
Yeah, I believe that in all aspects of life, self-awareness is super important. And being in tune with your body, with your mind, self-awareness is super, super important. And because it makes a huge difference in the way you react to whatever situations come from the outside and from the inside as well, of course. And that's an exercise that I do to make sure that I don't get lost in the sea of pessimist thoughts.
And you're not the only one. So are these also topics to be discussed in your clinic in TejoMed?
The this is a this is those topics are discussed between the patients and the doctors, so I'm not aware
Yeah.
of those. The reality is like mental health is something that we definitely in the practice of TejoMed, in the practice of healthcare, that's something that's super important. So that's something that we try to bring in. And our clinical director, Dr. Luisa Batista, she's very interested in that area of mental health. So of course she includes that in her practice and the way she deals with the patients.
Yeah, you mentioned already a couple of the tools you use to reduce your stress. I use evidently also nature as
Mm.
my tool. And if you need to choose, and I'm quite curious because you say you go out and you're going to walk in nature. If you need to choose between the sea or the mountain, what has your preference?
Um, I prefer the sea. And even it's very interesting because I grew in Portugal. I'm Porto. The ocean is not far away from here, right? So, and which means that growing up, that was like always something that I've it was present in my life. I don't surf. I don't swim in the ocean, anything. But the smell, the sounds, the peaceful, and sometimes not so peaceful nature of the ocean. That's something that I really value. And I remember like when I lived outside of Portugal in a place without the ocean, when I was coming back, one of the first things that I wanted to go see was the ocean. So I really missed the ocean. But yeah, so basically that's something that I really value. I do like the mountains, but there's something, I think everyone in Portugal, especially the ones that live down the coast, I think have this strong connection with the ocean. I think it's part of our DNA to have this connection with the ocean. So
And if you need to choose between warm or cold?
warm. I don't like the cold.
it's, a, it's almost yeah, I would say no brainer. If you go to
Yeah,
northern cultures, they say
yeah,
cold. So if you just go a
yeah,
little bit south, you don't like the cold, but
yeah, yeah. But not too warm, like 40 degrees Celsius, please no. But if it's like 27, 28, 29, that's perfect.
you are quite successful in all the things you do. Is there an advice, a guidance for other women or startups how to make it happen? What is an advice you would like to give them?
I think you need to find something that you really, really like doing. I'll give you an example. In the past, I worked in different industries. I realized that I do a much better work, a much better job when I really, for me, the impact of my work is super important. Now with healthcare, you clearly can see the impact of the work that you are doing. So for me, I, I'm not saying that, oh, you should find your passion or turn your hobby into a work. I don't think that I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is like, you need to understand like, where do you do your best work? And I do my best work when I'm working on something that really has an impact in the life of others. And for me, healthcare is like a perfect situation to be in, right? The work that you do can really impact the life of others. For example, I also found out like women's health because of my own personal history, because of the impact that can have. That's something it's a big passion of for me and an area that I really like to work on. The fact that I like so much makes things easier. I can give you another example. I used to have my own consultancy firm, and I was doing some work around climate change. Rationally, I think this is such a big thing, so important. There's so much we need to do. In my heart, it was not something that after work I was reading about. It was not something that after, like on the weekends, I really could care. So I realized that rationally, I know that this is important. This is something that we need to work on. But in my like this is not something that I will in my heart, in my like I don't know, in my soul, whatever you believe in. This was not my topic. This was not my life's mission. While with women's health, with healthcare in general, like when I finish working, what I want to do is either keep working or reading more about these things or reading more about things that will be make me better in the work that I do. And I think again, each person is different, but I think that makes a huge difference. And I don't think that is easy sometimes to find out, right? So a lot of the times you are in college, you leave college, you have like you find you haven't done enough in college to actually know what works for you, what doesn't. So you go, have your first job. When you realize you have a mortgage, you have kids, and it's hard for you to go and find that thing that you are passionate about. And and for me, for example, the healthcare and women's health, it's not a hobby, right? So it's not like, oh, I turned the hobby into, no, it's not something like that. It's like, I just realized as I went like in my path that was definitely not traditional, definitely not like the most linear path you can have. But I've done so many things that I realized, okay, this is where I want to be. This is what I'm passionate about. And because I'm so passionate about this, even though building a company is a roller coaster, there are a lot of highs and but also a lot of lows. I think that the impact of the work that I'm doing gives me the strength to keep going and the strength to keep working.
And also having the courage, at least what I hear you saying, to say, really be honest to yourself in the moment that it doesn't really feel like, yes, this is for me. And it
Yeah.
requires also courage.
Yeah, exactly. Because like rational, I know that climate change is super a big important topic, but for me, it doesn't do it. Like, it's not something that I can work on. But I know that there are other people that are super passionate about climate change, and they will do an amazing job in that field because they have also the courage to pursue
Yeah.
that area. Even though for me, like healthcare is definitely where I want to be, women's health, and there is like this component of impact. We just need to have the courage to find what actually works for us, and then have the courage to pursue it. Like I just read a book called Running Down Your Dream, which from a VC in US. But like the book is very much about like finding your passion and like what to do you do with it. There's like a sentence in the book that is not from him, which says that it was like someone asking this speaker, like, I want to work in the music industry, but my parents tell me that no one makes money in that industry. And what he was saying that I think is very profound is say like, I never met anyone that was very passionate about their job, that was very diligent and consistently delivering their job, that was really really obsessed with their industry, that was not able to make some money. Doesn't mean that they were going to be rich, but they can support themselves somehow, right? And I do believe that. I think like I think in every industry, in every area, you see people that are super high achievers. You see people that are less high achiever, but they can still have a good quality of life, even if you are working in an industry that traditional, it's harder. If you are passionate about whatever you are doing, and then you will be able to do the other things that will make you succeed in that area.
Yes, yes. What is your vision for women's health and TejoMed in, let's say, 5 years from now?
There's two different things. With TejoMed, we want to keep on growing and building a sustainable, healthy business where we deliver high quality of care to our patients. Men or women, children, older adults. We really want to make sure that we have a great place for work for everyone that works at TejoMed, and a great place for our patients to have our support to have their best life possible. For women's health, what I would like to see in the next 5 years is like more funding going through research in women's health. We need to find out why women have menopause, for example. Like why like so much that we don't know why like more women have Alzheimer's than men. What is in our nature that makes that a reality? So what I would like to have is to see is like more money going to research, so then we can have better diagnosis, better treatment, better solution for women's health. It still takes 7 to 10 years to get a diagnosis for endometriosis, for example. Still takes 7 to 10 years to get a diagnosis for PCOS. So we still don't know why women go through menopause. There's so much we don't know that I would love to see more research going into that, because I think we deserve better care than we are currently getting.
You were saying at the beginning, and now it come back to me, about more time for the patient in the TejoMed. But it means also that a physician has more time with the patient. Not only the patient with the physician, but also the physician with the patient. And that must do also have a positive effect, I guess, on the physician and his work.
Of course, the current system of 10, 15, 20 minutes per patient, one after the other, no breaks, no time to breathe, is not good for anyone. For example, in Portugal, there are a few studies around burnout in doctors. which is normal. It's normal in a way that with the current system, it's like it of course happens. What we are trying to do with TejoMed is also to create a great environment for doctors to do their best work. I think a lot of doctors went to medical school because they really wanted to be there for their patients, to have time for their patients, to have a relationship to their patients. Because being a healthcare that is transactional is not good for anyone, neither the patient nor the doctors. And that's something that we want to do with TejoMed for sure.
Yeah, and a better regulated doctor
Mhm.
can also approach the patient in a better way, more
Yeah,
efficient
exactly. I
or
think it's
more human. And then the results of whatever comes out of that is also improved.
for sure, for sure. I think if no matter like what job you have, if you are good yourself, you will be able to deliver the do your job much better, and that's true for anyone, including for doctors for sure.
Yeah, and doctors are also still human.
We are all human, and even though I think we have tried over the years to make things as more like machines for some reason, but we cannot lose humanity of who we are. And with COVID and the fact that now we're working more remotely, there's so many things that we are doing this podcast. We could not do this if this technology didn't allow us. But we cannot forget that we still need to be with each other in person, and we do gain energy from the others. We do give energy to others, and that I think that relationship that makes us human, right? And that's true for healthcare or healthcare appointments, but it's true for everything in life, right? And we cannot forget that.
Yeah, not making only healthcare human again, but also life human again.
Exactly.
And that is super important. Ines, thank you very much for this wonderful, open, transparent conversation I had with you. I learned a lot, and I hope you enjoy it too. And thank you very much again.
No, it was a pleasure. These are big, important topics that need to be discussed. So it was really, really great to be interviewed and to share a little bit more my vision and how I'm seeing things in the world right now.